Men, do you ever feel like you just can't get ahead? Like you're misunderstood? Like you have no one to talk to that truly hears you?
And women, are you often frustrated, hurt, and saddened in your relationships with the men in your life?
What if there were a community of like-minded men going through the same challenges that would support, hear, and understand what you're going through?
Working together in unison to create understanding, intimacy, and strong connections. That's the Way of the Illuminated Warrior.
Way of the Illuminated Warrior Talk Show is a forum of candid conversations for men and women about men. Being a man today is not always easy. Until now.
Hey, welcome back, folks, to the Way of the Illuminated Warrior Talk Show. I am Waska, and I am here once again with my new friend, Lora Cheadle. Hey, Lora.
Hey, I am so excited we get to continue our conversation.
Yes, for those of you who did not hear our conversation last time, really powerful conversation on betrayal and infidelity. Lora shared her story. I shared some of my background and story. And if you didn't see it, it is part of this this channel. So subscribe, like it. We're probably going to have more conversations on it. We encourage you to ask questions, leave comments, and we will definitely address those. So last time, we talked about, again, the effects of betrayal and infidelity, and what was really weighing on my mind, which I definitely want to get into. And before I respond to it, I want to ask you. So obviously there's some heavy duty effects that come along with that, you know, emotional, spiritual, even physical. How, in your estimation, because you work with women, I work with men, we're gonna touch upon the sacred feminine, divine masculine, and share these experiences. How do we move forward in a healthy, balanced way, in your estimation?
Oh, that's such a great question, because it's so hard, and there's really not one size fits all for a response, unfortunately. Moving forward, really, I think, requires getting radically honest about yourself and who you are. And also, there's such a fine line between, like, I didn't cause my husband to cheat in any way, shape, or form, but there's some things in me that contributed to that. And I'm not blaming myself at all, because we're all humans. But what in me attracted that? What in me was okay with that? What in me didn't see things? And again, I am not taking responsibility for him at all, but it's that radical responsibility and honesty. And until we're really clear on who we are and what we're attracting and what stories we're playing out, we really can't move forward, because otherwise it's just him. Right. Men are bad. They're so toxic. It's awful. And that doesn't help.
Yeah, I love that. We have radical responsibility and really looking at ourselves, because it's always, and I will say always, I don't like to use the absolutes, but really, I do believe that it's always, you know, they say there's two sides to every story, and actually three sides, you know, her side, his side, and actually the universal truth, we'll say, you know, somewhere in between. So I really believe that that's a really great point, that we really need to be responsible for whatever our part is. And like you said, you know, what was that in me that was attracting this and all? And that's a great place to start, because if it's always the finger pointing and the blame game, I don't see how we can move forward, really. So did you move forward?
I moved forward really well.
Please, pray tell.
Yeah, here's the thing. I started really, when I did that deep dive into me, I naturally channel a lot of feminine energy. I love. Yeah, it's like, I just love that, and it's fun, and it's playful. And I love serving other people, and I love taking care of other people, and I love all of that. But I had let it go a little bit too far, and I had moved into the state of feeling like, being a martyr, feeling put upon, being a little bit in that martyr space, that I do everything for everyone, and I don't need to sleep. I'll just stay up all night and take care of this. And that's okay. I'm not going to ask for what I need. I'll just assume that you're going to know what I need. And nobody noticed and nobody saw that. And that I think that's a common thing for many people. But again, it's just recognizing, oh, hey, that's a story that I was playing out a little bit in my head. That is like a default wounded space that I go to. And it's not good or bad, right or wrong. It's just the way that I am. And how did I not take care of myself? Why was I not creating stronger boundaries? Why was I not asking for what I needed? Why was I not taking what I needed? Why was I doing that? And how did I want my life to look like going forward? And it was only when I could look and figure out, hey, this is what I was attracting. This is how I was getting a little off balance. Coupling that with, this is how I want my life to be. This is how I want to feel and experience life. Then I was able to move forward.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, that's the self-reflection. That's the growth, which not everybody is really mindful of. So I think what you're saying is really key. Being responsible, taking a look at, asking those questions, and then really moving forward. Because if not, and we stay in that space of like, well, you know, he did this to me, she did that to me, and the blaming thing, I don't believe we ever grow and are even able to move forward. So this is like something I really want to get your perspective on, and I do believe it goes both ways. So at first, I'm gonna repeat a comment that my friend Jen said. At first, I thought it was amusing, and then I'm like, wow, it's not amusing. It's kind of sad because it's true. So she said the first thing that we should ask when we're going into a new relationship. I'm laughing because it's like, wow, okay. So the first thing we ask is like, okay, what dysfunctional behaviors are you bringing in from a previous relationship that you're going to eventually project onto me? And what are you doing to stop it? And I was like, wow. But you know what? It's so true. Even in my own experience, it's like, can we just start off from a place of neutrality, assuming the best, and moving from here, being in the present? Because those past relationships, yes, we were hurt, we were traumatized, we were betrayed, whatever it is, bringing that in to a new relationship, it's already starting on the wrong foot. And it's happened so many times to myself and to a lot of the guys I work with, so I've heard this from men and women. So what's your take on that?
I love that. My husband and I have a joke, and that joke is very similar. It's, if you're going to be in a relationship with somebody, show me your receipts from counseling, your receipts from self-help book, your receipts from coaching, because we've all got something. And it's not like we can ever, it's my belief that we're never going to fully heal and fully get over everything, because we're human and we get tired and we get stressed and we get hungry and we get hurt and we get all of that. But as long as we continue to become aware, first of all, and then say, hey, I've started meditating and it helps. I know how to take a deep cleansing breath before a conversation. Wow, I read this new book and there's this new technique. Let's talk about it. I think it was 2 weeks ago, I did the Harville Hendricks Safe Conversation course. Hey, look, it's not like I am changing every single relationship to an imago dialogue, but it's a new skill. And now I can share this new skill, and I'm constantly evolving. And humans should constantly evolve, especially when we know our weak places. Because if you think about like coaching or any athletic, endeavor, your weak places. You need to work on your backhand. You need to work on your, back bend. You need to stretch your hand. We know our weak places and we work on them. Why is there so much shame in personal development around, first of all, owning our weaknesses, and second of all, working on them? We would do it in a physical endeavor every day.
Yeah. So true. So if I were to bring this up in the circle of guys, Harville Hendricks or imago techniques, like probably most guys have not heard of that, and I just happen to, just because I'm interested in it and I'm trying to elevate my own consciousness and work on relationships. But point being is that like those techniques are not things that we're taught organically, naturally, or even would come across unless we're seeking them out. And I think that's a huge part of the problem is the communication skills or lack thereof that men and women have, and so often, going back to that comment that my friend Jen made, the questions that we should ask, so often we go to that defensive place first, being defensive. And like, wow, like there's no place to go from being defensive. It's not going to turn out well. You're not going to have, any kind of communion with that. So learning some of these techniques, how to communicate effectively, compassionately, listening rather than thinking about what you're going to say to combat what you just heard. I mean, these are essential skills that I think all men and women, like everybody, really needs to learn and practice, because if not, it's the same cycle over and over and over again, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's hard. It's just life is hard and relationships are hard.
Oh, yeah. So do you think, this is a serious question, I want you to be serious here. Do you think it was God's plan to make men and women exactly the way we are so he or she could be amused by this? I mean, what's going on here?
I don't think amused is quite the right. I think it's really important, truly in all seriousness, though, I think it's vitally important that we're able to look at things from all points of view. And I don't know if this came out in the last show, but my background is a corporate attorney. And when you're an attorney, what you have to do is you have to take an issue. You are given an issue and you have to advocate on behalf of that point of view. And one of the things in strengthening your case that you need to do is you need to look at your issue from the other point of view so you know what you're going to defend against. So you're not standing there in court being completely blindsided and say, oh, I never thought about that. So you really have to challenge the way that you think. And 9 times out of 10, it's not an emotional issue. It's a contract, but you just pretend if I were on the other side and I were arguing this point of view, what would I argue? Well, it's easy, and in a relationship, it's more difficult because it's personal to us. But I do think that's the whole man-woman thing. We're supposed to be able to see things from a different point of view. For me to understand, oh, wow, your biology is a little bit different. Oh, wow, your beliefs are a little bit different. Oh, wow. And I do think that's part of the game. And that's part of the challenge, is to get us out of our own shoes, our own perspective, and be able to look at a problem from all sides.
We'll be right back after this. Hey guys, this is Waska. Listen, if you're hearing my voice, there are no coincidences. Are you ready to get unblocked and take the next step forward, whether it's with relationship issues, finances, or just moving into the next phase to elevate yourself? Listen, bros, this is what I do. I'm here for you. Drop me an email at Waska, that's WASKA, at ILLUMINATEDWarrior.com. We will work on this together and take you to the next step. I promise you'll be glad you did. What I've heard in counseling with the guys, a lot of times, she doesn't listen to me, she doesn't hear me, she doesn't respect me, and to a degree, there's truth in that. There's also finger pointing, because again, it's always two sides to the coin. And from women that I know also, same thing. He doesn't hear me, he doesn't understand me. So it gets back to that lack of good, clear communication. And, then I ask, okay, so what are you doing to have a better communication? Are you listening? And that's usually my suggestion. Just sit there and listen. Don't even, other than acknowledge and validate, do not respond in that moment. Make it clear, okay, I'm going to take this in. I'm going to listen to you. I want to hear what you have to say. And then at a later time in the near future, when I have time to process it, think about it, relate to it, and take it from a compassionate standpoint, and not okay, well, I don't agree with that, and all the things that seem to more organically come up, unfortunately, and then come back and revisit that, like what you're saying, having a different mindset, different perspective, because it does take training to think differently and to acknowledge the other person has feelings, and we can never really dispute how somebody feels. I mean, if you feel a certain way, I can't tell you don't feel that way,
Right.
So,
yeah, it's hard. And, like that, there are techniques that'll help. When we were first doing the disclosure around the infidelity, we did not talk. We texted because the emotions came up and we were both too volatile. And it was not a conversation. It was 2 monologues over each other. And that's not healthy or helpful. So we would text and it would be like, I will text, I will read that, then I will think, then I will respond, then I will edit that.
Yeah, interesting, because the texting also, I can see how that could be valuable. I find texting, especially in relationships where it's like kind of like an important, vital thing. I always ask, could we talk on the phone? Like, I'm old school anyway. I'd rather talk on the phone, because text, the syntax, the expression, the actual meaning is a lot of times it's taken the wrong way or lost. So I think texting for something that's really important, if you can have the physical conversation, I think is really important to do.
Right.
But we're in a society where it's mostly digital, it's quick, it's,
Yeah.
but that can cause problems also. Yeah, just the, sitting in front of somebody, looking them in the eye and just being present, it's not as common as maybe it should be. I don't know,
Yeah. I mean, but I think to your point, communication is vast and it's multifaceted. There's nonverbal communication. There's, touch. That's a form of communication.
Yeah.
There are times like that where I need the in-person communication. And there were times like that where we were both way too volatile and we could not be in the same room to communicate. And sometimes like that, to write an email and to sit with it and to not send it for a couple of days. And I think that's just like knowing you have a lot of options. You can talk, you can Zoom, you can text. Pick what works for you. Don't think there's only one way.
Yeah, that's a powerful exercise also, writing things down and not sending them. I'm like notorious for like responding very, very quickly. And then afterwards, when I read back or I look back, I'm like, I really could have sat with that a little bit longer. So I've learned over the years, okay, chill. You don't have to respond immediately. And that's a great exercise as well. And sometimes after reading it, you choose not to send it because it really doesn't have any value in any kind of resolve. It was just like, okay, well, I'm feeding my ego here with what I just wrote here, and it's not going to help the situation, right?
Yeah. And like that, are you, not you, Waska, but like you collectively, are you responding to really answer the question and to gain more clarity? Or are you responding to defend your own point of view? And that's a big one, because most times we're not responding to gain more clarity. We're responding to assert or defend our own point of view.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's why I again use that exercise with the guys. Are you responding or are you reacting? Being reactive, because reactive behavior is usually it's just, I don't want to say instinctual, but it's a learned behavior that it's not taking the time to really process and be fair a lot of the times. So a response is more thoughtful as a reaction. It's like, if you think of a chemical reaction,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
and what's your goal? Something that I have to think about often is, what is my goal? Is my goal in communication to be right? Is my goal in communication to be heard? Or is my goal in communication to increase intimacy and understanding?
Yeah.
Sadly, usually it's like, well, because I want to prove my point, because I want someone to know, I mean, when you really think about it, oftentimes it's not the best of intentions.
Yeah, well, that's true of a lot of people. So that's a great question to ask yourself, do I want to be happy or do I want to be right? Because if you're right, you may think you're happy, but it's not going to be very sustainable for a while when you're right by yourself all the time.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Yeah. So I want to shift gears a little bit. We could definitely circle back to this. So we just celebrated International Women's Day this past week. Yay! So from a woman's perspective, a conscious woman's perspective, what do you, for the men listening, what do you want men to know? What do you want men to acknowledge? What do you want to say to men? This is how women could be supported. This is what you could do to support women.
I think there's a couple of things. I'm glad you asked that. I think first and foremost, just understanding that we do have a different lived experience. And whether or not it was true in your life, in your family, in your job, just to take the time to try to understand a little bit more what a woman's lived experience truly was. And it kind of goes back to what I said earlier about some of the curiosity. Get a little more curious about women. We're not saying that you have to change anything, but just get a little more curious. Truly ask me what it is like. Ask me what I have faced. Ask me what my fears are. Just got a little more curious, because I think we're all happy to tell you. And sometimes the reason that we're like ranting and raving so much is because nobody has asked.
That is like such a great point, so powerful. I tell the brothers all the time, dude, just listen.
Yeah.
And then what? I'm like, dude, just listen. Like, but like really listen, be present, nod your head, acknowledge because you're listening, but that's it.
Yeah.
If you don't hear her say, how do I fix this? Which she's not going to say, then don't offer any fixes, because there's nothing broken. And that's, hey, I lived that also. That's what we're kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to say we're taught, but somewhere along the line, hunters got, we just like fixing things. You bust out the tools, the power tools, and fix things. Generalization, but to a degree, it's true. We want to be of service to you, but it's not being of service in the way that you want it or asking for it necessarily, because there's nothing broken, there's nothing to be fixed. So I tell guys this all the time: just listen to what she's saying, and then respond. Don't fix something that's not broken. And it's a powerful insight that I learned. And when guys try it, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe how easy that was. I'm like, yeah,
right.
All you had to do was listen, right?
Yeah. Just listen, just get curious. I'll tell you what's going on. I'll tell you my thoughts around it, and don't deny them. And you're right, don't try to fix them, but don't try to tell me that's not my experience. It is to my experience.
Yeah. Well, such a huge part about a healthy, balanced relationship is the communication. I think that's the number one thing, is being able to listen, being able to acknowledge and understand. You don't have to agree with everything, I tell the guys, but at least have some empathy, and hopefully she'll have empathy for you also. We are from Mars and Venus to a large degree. That's why I was joking before, is God is laughing because,
Yes.
Who created this lunacy?
Right.
But it takes work. It definitely takes work. And I come from, my spiritual background is very steeped in Native American culture. And what I learned, which was beautiful, I was out in South Dakota, and I was asked if I wanted to learn about, the woman's moon time, and I'm like, wow, growing up, and I know a lot of guys relate to this, well, excuse my French, well, she's on the rag, and it's the most sacred time. And when we do ceremony in the Native American way, women are at their most powerful time. So like I was taught in the Apache tradition to do a sunrise ceremony. So I always ask, are any women on their moon time? Because they're super, super powerful, super sensitive in a good way at that point in time. And, it could even be dangerous, because even back then, when it was a matriarchal society, women were the power keepers, really, to a large degree, and they would counsel with the men. So I think it's really important for men to acknowledge that women, yes, we are co-creating new life, but women are the life givers. Women do bear, the babies for 9+ months. And that in itself is like something that needs to be celebrated, needs to be acknowledged, and needs to be honored. That in itself, not like, hey, she's on the rag, and
right.
And hey, look, I grew up like that also, but once you are conscious of the sacredness and the beauty of it, it's that in itself, I think is a big thing that really should be honored for women.
Yeah. I love how you mentioned that, because men all want women. Men are like, they want women. Well, if you want a woman, why the negative talk? Why the negative behavior? Because we want to be wanted. And, when you hear guys make crude references, or, and then it's like, now I don't want you.
Yeah. And that's very sad, because a lot of times that's the way guys are brought up, because even, yes, we all, heterosexual, we all love women, but yet it's like, it's so counterintuitive. Like, let's be assholes about it, excuse my French, and talk
true.
smack. And it's like, that's like the opposite of what you want and what you're going to get, and really one guy standing in the circle talking beautiful things about women, you're going to get some guys poking you with the stick, right, so to speak. But once one other guy joins in, they realize, like, hey, he's the only guy that's actually had a girnfriend his whole life, or a wife, and and he actually is making
He's
it work,
happy.
and we're all sitting around drinking beer, farting, and watching football. And the guys know I love
Yeah.
them, but I'm joking around, but I'm not joking around. Like, you want to be respected, then have the respect,
Yeah.
So you want to co-create something, then you have to step up. And again, going back to that indigenous way of being, the warriors, they took care of the women, they took care of the children, they made sure the elders were protected. That's the way it's supposed to be, not, rape, pillage, and plunder. I mean, and not all men are like that. Absolutely not.
No.
But the men need to stand for the women, and then the women will have a much easier time understanding and stand for the men, but we gotta show up for the women, as a part of that. I do believe that to be true.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does go both ways too. After the infidelity story, my infidelity experience, I read a story and I can't remember. I'm struggling to remember like who wrote it or where it was, but it was about wolves and how wolves are in a matriarchal society. And when there is another wolf that comes in, it's the female wolf that will let the rest of the pack know that that wolf is okay to be in the pack. And, I thought, gosh, there's so much around that with men and women too, because even though our society is mostly a patriarchal society, women do make it okay for men too. And that was a big lesson, with my husband around the infidelity. People hated him. People hated him. And it really took me to let them know that it was okay to bring him back, that they could talk to him, that they could have a relationship with him. And it goes both ways. Men do need to stand for women, but women also need to stand for men. But I'm not going to stand for somebody who's not worthy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you said that, because it does go both ways. I'm very diligent about, because I work with the men, like when I hear talking smack and all that. And believe me, like I said, there's a lot of really good men out there that do support their women, that are standing. But even if there's a very small population of guys who aren't, it's not okay. I just feel like when you have that awareness, we are warriors. That's our mindset. So then be a warrior. Be a warrior. This is what a warrior is, and it's a difference between being a warrior going to war and fighting like military war, or being a spiritual warrior, or what I call an illuminated warrior, where you will stand for what's right. You will have the truth and integrity and grace to do what we know is right. There's man's law and there's God's law, so which do you want to follow?
Yeah. I love that, because again, as part of our infidelity journey, when we started talking, at first I, kicked him out and we were done and all that stuff. And then as part of the journey, one of the days I said to him is, I just want you to fight for me. If I am worth it, then fight for me. And like that reactivated that he is the warrior. And if I'm worth it, you will fight for me. And if that's not what you want, that's fine too. But you either have to be in or out. Step in and do the hard work, or leave.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where that symbiotic relationship comes in, where whether it's imago or just learning to communicate, that men and women can make it work. So there's I think they attribute it to a Cherokee old tale, so I'll adapt it a little bit. The two wolves that are fighting, and the grandson asks, grandfather, which wolf is going to win. One wolf represents, he's betrayed his mate, he's committed infidelity, multiple acts of infidelity, and he's just not a good guy. He's out there rape, pillaging, and plundering. And the other wolf, he's sitting in council with the other wolves, and he's sharing the food, sharing the love. And so the question is, which of the wolves is going to win the fight? And grandfather says, whichever one you feed.
Yeah.
Which is very true. So if you feed that betrayal and that avarice and that anger and that hate, that's what's going to win in your heart and destroy you. Or if you have integrity and love and grace and compassion and empathy, then that's what's going to win also. And that's for all of us, men or women. We really have to step up for ourselves first and foremost, and be the people that we want to be with. Because we do attract what we put out there.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Very much.
Yeah.
And like that, just being aware, it's so much of it goes back to the awareness, because it's hard to be aware. We just want somebody to make it easy for us.
Yes, very true. And on the flip side, like once you are aware, I don't think so. I don't know if you agree. There's no option anymore. It's like you have to do what's right, whether you want to or not, however hard it is. You have to step up. You have to be present. You have to do the right thing. Is that your experience as well?
So true. So true. Yeah, life becomes more clear in a lot of ways because it's like, well, this is what we do now.
Yeah. And then we get the opportunity to teach others like both you and I do. So I just want to reiterate again to anybody who's listening, if you like what we're saying, Lora is a coach and a woman's empowerment woman, and same for me, only with the men. So, we're both available for that type of work. And, again, we're putting these the intention behind these talks is really to open up a dialogue and to help to heal and to bridge that gap of miscommunication. And hopefully moving forward, men and women will learn to communicate better and have more cohesive and beautiful and balanced relationships, right?
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, because I think when men and women are together in a good way, it's powerful.
The best. It's the best. It is a beautiful thing. Yeah. So in your infinite wisdom, what would you like to leave the audience with surrounding today's conversation?
This is directly to men. Women will hold space for you. I think we all know that there is a wounded little boy inside of all of you because there's also a wounded little girl inside all of us. And yes, you're great warriors, and we still want to hold you too. So we recognize that we have to hold your vulnerable, tender spaces in order for you to fight for us. And we're willing to do it, and just give us the chance, be vulnerable, show us your wounds, and we'll heal you in the way that we also expect you to be a warrior for us.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. Hopefully all the guys heard that. And I will close by giving a message to the ladies. Give us a chance as well. Assume the best, and communicate with us with patience, because, a lot of times the guy's model is when he hears something or feels something that doesn't resonate, he's gone. I'm sure women have experienced that. He's just going to leave because he doesn't want to deal. He doesn't know how to deal. So communicate with us. Have that little extra compassion, knowing that we are the wounded warriors and we need that extra little bit of hugging and compassion, even though we want to stand there and be like, I'm your warrior. The little boy is in there, because we all have that wounded little boy in there, like you said. And so stand with us, we'll stand with you. And I always say, it's like the men and women should be walking side by side. The man shouldn't be in front, the woman shouldn't be in front. We should be walking side by side. And that's my vision for beautiful, cohesive relationships going forward. Yeah.
Great vision.
Excellent. Well, this was great once again, Lora, and hopefully we'll continue the dialogue, because I do really fully believe in my heart this is helpful for both men and women to hear, true perspectives. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. So thank you. I look forward to more.
All right. Excellent. So once again, subscribe, send us messages. We'll keep the conversation going. And until next time, continue to illuminate your paths with loving kindness.
Visit IlluminatedWarrior.com if you'd like to go deeper and find out more about what's available within the Illuminated Warrior Men's Transformational Community. Tune in next time for more candid conversations for men and women about men on the Way of the Illuminated Warrior Talk Show. Until next time, illuminate your path with loving kindness.